Back in 2002, when SACA was founded, really through the hard work of Tony Irish, who's really the individual who must get the credit for that, with people like Dave Richardson and John T. Rhodes, who got together to protect player rights.
That first year was very tough. It was just me. We had no resources. We did have a big opportunity though, that in 2003, when the World Cup was here, there was a situation in which the ICC had sold a whole lot of rights relating to that event to the broadcasters and sponsors, etc. But they hadn't actually obtained the player rights to do that. And so we had that opportunity of taking that issue up for the players globally around the world. And so we had an issue which could deliver benefit to the players.
And what Tony Irish did so very well back in 2002 and 2003 was to get the cricketers to collectivise at a national Protea level and at the provinces. And that enabled him to have leverage to go to Cricket South Africa and say, you need to recognise us. And once that recognition was there, the Player Association was able to flourish. And we've grown exponentially over the last 20 years.
As I mentioned, we formed just before the World Cup in South Africa here in 2003. Percy Son was the chairman of Cricket South Africa, and he of course didn't like what we were doing, and so they stonewalled us for months and months and months before the World Cup. Players, however, kept together, and a few weeks before the World Cup actually started, the ICC started putting pressure on South Africa to get the squad terms, which the players had to sign back to the ICC, and we said we weren't going to sign until we had actually sorted out this commercial rights issue. As the date got closer and the pressure started increasing for this, Percy invited me to a coffee. I phoned up John T. and Sean Pollock, who was captain at the time, and said, Percy's asked me to come and have a coffee with him. I think we're going to get across the line now. Well, I arrived for my coffee with Percy, and Percy said to me, Tony, if you stuff with my World Cup, you will have a big problem going forward. Tell me now whether you guys are going to agree to our terms on this or not. And I stood up, pushed the chair in and said, thanks Percy, but we're not going to agree. And that was quite a scary moment, because after that we were ostracized sort of within the cricket community. It delivered value because we did get a deal done eventually on those commercial rights, and we started working the next year in cooperation with Cricket South Africa over the restructuring of the game. So there were a few difficult, challenging moments at the beginning.
So the period 2018, 19, 2020, those 3 years were probably the most tumultuous in the history of South African cricket. There were significant board challenges, operational challenges at Cricket South Africa, which meant at the end of December 2018, Tabang Moreau was suspended. Jacques Fall was appointed as interim CEO. The relationship between CSA and SACA at that time had been absolutely destructive. 2020 brought in a new era with Jacques Fall, and we sat down and we were able to try and plan a bit more of a constructive relationship. But things didn't actually end there, because COVID struck, and again that was destructive to the world of cricket. No one could play, we couldn't have crowds, etc. And so a lot of cricketers whose contracts were ending at the end of April that year suddenly didn't have employment to go to. And that was a crisis for us. So as SACA, we got involved directly in that problem, and we created a hardship fund for our players. What also happened in 2020 was Black Lives Matter, and that came and hit sport directly, and it hit cricket directly. And again, from a SACA perspective, we had to get involved in players, understand players' viewpoints and their opinions, which was an important process for us. But we got through it, and we came out stronger for, again, the simple reasons as to why player associations are strong. And that's because we stuck together as players.
Yeah, back when we started in 2002, I didn't really envisage where it would go to. And now 22, 23 years later, very proud of where it is at. And in particular, it's standing in the international players movement, because, you know, SACA is the Players Association for cricketers in South Africa, but there is also a global Players Federation of Players Associations in which SACA is very influential. The game is complex. You have it existing at international level, at domestic level, T20 league level. You have 3 formats of the game, institutional knowledge, solidarity of the players. I think those are the really important lessons that you learn in order to make sure that you position well for the future.